Chapter 200. The night breeze with the smell of gunpowder blew in through the open window. Outside, the sirens were still ringing through the night sky. The international police officers standing by the window leaned their whole bodies out of the window, but they did not see the other Chinese soldiers who were confronting them, nor did they see the Chinese soldiers hiding in the ventilation vent. "Sir, they have left," someone on the intercom said softly. He was telling the commanding officer at the scene, "I'm sorry, we're still a step too late." He disappeared into thin air, leaving not even a trace behind. During the confrontation just now, the Chinese soldiers were all wearing gas masks, so it was impossible to see their faces clearly. Now, there was no way to know where they had gone. This feeling caused them to feel a chill in their hearts. There was an uncomfortable feeling pressing down on their hearts, but they had no one to complain to. Were the Chinese soldiers weak? Were they really weak? No one could answer, only they could answer themselves. The commanding officer at the scene was momentarily stunned. Disappeared? Disappeared? Gut. When did the international police officers become unable to find a few living people? Xia Jinyuan, who was carrying Yi Qian, had already escaped several waves of police officers who had entered the building. He stopped by the side of the elevator that had started operating and saw a few Australian police officers who were investigating the scene walk out of the elevator. He hid in the dark and waited until they left before walking out. Little did he know that Yi Jian, who had been in his embrace all this time, had already become dizzy. Not only was her head dizzy, but her little face was also flushed red like a peach blossom, and it was crimson red. The air in the building was not very good. When the international police officers rushed in, they threw smoke grenades everywhere as if they were free. Now that it was over, the air was still filled with smoke. Yi Qian guessed that he had stayed in the building for too long and that the gas mask he was wearing was not working. Otherwise, why would he feel so dizzy? The dizzy Yi Qian was like a little turtle hiding in its shell, using this method to hypnotize himself. When he was about to walk out, Yi Qian calmed himself down and coughed softly. "Captain Xia, I can walk on my own. You don't have to carry me all the time. I'm not used to it." "Are you sure your legs aren't weak?" Although he was joking, he still respected Yi Qian's wishes like a gentleman. He bent down slightly and put her down. "If you can't walk, just let me know. I still have the strength to carry you." She was very light and very thin. The first feeling he got when he held her in his arms was that she needed to be well nourished. Yi Qian instantly felt that his breathing had become much smoother after leaving his embrace and losing the warmth of his body. His mind, which had felt like it had been stuffed with cotton, was no longer as dizzy as before. He gradually regained his clarity. As expected, a dangerous man really couldn't get too close. She was held in his arms like he was protecting a treasure. Her entire body was floating. When her feet landed on the ground, it was just as he said, her legs were a little weak. However, it was absolutely impossible for her to admit that her legs were weak. He smiled. "If I really can't walk, I won't be polite with Captain Xia." She wouldn't be polite with him? That would be strange. This little girl was as cunning as a fox one moment, as a fish the next moment, and as pitiful as a little rabbit the next moment. It was really difficult to understand what she was thinking. "Okay, you're welcome to be polite at any time." Hearing that her tone had regained its usual indifference, Xia Jinyuan, who was slightly relieved, regained his sense of humor. "You must know that as a man, I'm born to serve beautiful girls. Little girl, I'm always welcome to be polite with you." Chapter 201. The humorous Xia Jinyuan is back. Yi Qian breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. His vigilance, which had gone off somewhere, instantly returned. The elegant and humorous Xia Jinyuan was the Xia Jinyuan he was most familiar with. Just as he secretly thought this, Major Xia, who had regained his humorous demeanor a second ago, became exceptionally serious in the next second. He took off his gas mask and stood under the faint light. His handsome face appeared exceptionally cold, and his eyes were like cold stars as he stared coldly at the exit in front of him. "I'll cover for you later and divert their attention. J5 and the others have already left. It's not suitable for the members of our operation group to appear in public, and you, little girl, can't show your face either. Because all the international police outside think that you've already been rescued and sent to the hospital along with the other kidnapped Chinese student. After Gao Yang came out, the Chinese soldier told the international police in order to protect and hide Yi Qian. After all, Yi Qian was only a student who could inform the police of Red Scorpion's activities in the hotel. Moreover, no one would believe that Red Scorpion, which was a headache for the international police and the Vietnamese military, would actually die at the hands of a high school student like Yi Qian. It wasn't because they were afraid that others wouldn't believe them, but because they were worried about Yi Qian's personal safety. The entire building was filled with international police officers. Yi Qian, who was a few steps behind, saw Xia Jinyuan walk in and was stopped by the police officers standing behind the police cordon for routine questioning. He didn't say a word and directly stretched out his arm. A brightly colored miniature version of the national flag with 5 golden stars made the interrogating European police officer stand at attention, raise his hand, and salute. He didn't ask any more questions and let the interrogating officer in. He also had a walkie-talkie hanging in front of his chest. Xia Jinyuan pointed at the walkie-talkie and smiled politely. "I need to borrow your walkie-talkie to say a few words to your commanding officer." "Of course." The police officer didn't hesitate at all. He looked at the Chinese soldier with admiration in his eyes and handed the walkie-talkie over. After Xia Jinyuan thanked him, he took it and leaned to the side to block the police officer's view. At the same time, he was able to see Yi Qian's movements. He restrained his polite smile and no longer spoke in a warm tone. Instead, it was filled with an inviolable coldness. It was the hard and cold expression of a Chinese soldier. He said to the international police commander on the scene, "Please tell your commander-in-chief that the thing he wants is in the hands of our soldiers. If he wants to get it, please apologize to our soldiers first." His voice was piercingly cold and resounding, striking the hearts of everyone present. He spoke in standard American English, and anyone with a walkie-talkie could hear him. At the same time, his words made the European police officers who had once thought that the Chinese soldiers were incompetent feel ashamed. If he dared to say such words, he definitely needed to have a certain level of confidence. Xia Jinyuan returned the walkie-talkie to the European police officer who was already embarrassed. He smiled again and did not forget to maintain his politeness and said, "Goodbye." His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to attract the attention of the police officers on duty. They saw Yi Qian stick close to the wall and nimbly hide behind a tree. She didn't immediately come out. She was like a little fox that came out of its cave. After looking around vigilantly, she lightly jumped across the warning line parallel to the green ribbon and successfully avoided the sight of the police officers. Watching her leave, Xia Jinyuan's lips curled up slightly. She's strong and agile. No wonder she's a reserve soldier, trained by a first-class sergeant and the world's best sniper. Chapter 202. After setting up the cordon, Xia Jinyuan walked out and saw Yi Qian hiding behind a tall wall from the corner of his eye. He walked over with a gentle smile in his eyes. The ambulance arranged by the Chinese side drove over under his instructions. The doctors and nurses in the ambulance were all from the embassy. After Yi Qian got into the ambulance, they immediately gave her a simple checkup. After they were done, they gave Xia Jinyuan an OK hand sign to indicate that everything was normal. The two of them sat in front of the ambulance and pulled down a layer of cloth. Xia Jinyuan casually placed the gas mask to the side. He looked at the little face in front of him that had regained some color. His thin lips curved into a perfect smile. "Your heart rate is correct. It looks like you're really not afraid anymore." Major Xia's smile was very lethal. Just now, she had been dizzy from his minty scent, and now she saw his warm smile. What a dangerous man. Yi Qian lowered her head silently. She rubbed her wrists and smiled. "Yes, I'm not afraid anymore if I don't think about it. Little girl, congratulations. You're one big step closer to becoming a qualified soldier." He smiled faintly. He raised his hand and gently rubbed her head. His voice became more serious. "Also, even though I can't reward you for this operation, your achievements will be forever recorded in the military files. Everyone will be proud of you." Yi Qian was only 14 years old. She had gone through a kidnapping, sacrificed herself to save others, participated in an operation, and fearlessly killed the top target. At 14 years old, she had done things that no one else her age could surpass. Yi Qian felt that this was good. She nodded and said calmly, "This is good enough. I don't need to be rewarded, and I don't need too many people to know about it. This is very good. The glory that belongs to you will always belong to you. Accepting everything calmly will make it easier for you. Little girl, you have a very good attitude." Yi Qian was indeed very suitable to join the military and become a soldier. At the hospital, when the 4 guards sent by the embassy saw the ambulance arrive, they immediately went out to greet it. Inside the ambulance, Xia Jinyuan confirmed that no one was following them before he removed the gas mask from Yi Qian's face. He said in a low voice, "Don't show your face. The embassy guards will escort you back to the hotel. When you go back, don't tell anyone about what happened tonight. I still have things to deal with here. I'll come back tomorrow afternoon." He patted Yi Jian's head gently. "Have a good rest and think about tomorrow's exam." Yi Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I thought you would ask me to rest and not take my exam tomorrow's exam. Little girl, the exam is the most important thing for a student. Don't think too much." When Xia Jinyuan heard this, his handsome face smiled deeply. He saluted the 4 guards and returned to the ambulance without looking back. When Yi Qian came out of the ophthalmology department, he saw Director Li pacing back and forth in the white corridor. A middle-aged man with a cold expression was sitting in a chair. It was Gao Yang's father. He had specially come to thank Yi Qian. He was shocked that a young girl could remain calm in such a situation and give the opportunity to leave to a boy. This was a hospital that the Gao family had a large stake in. When Gao Yang's father asked the doctor about Yi Qian's condition with a serious expression, Director Li's eyes were already filled with tears. "It's good that you're fine. If you didn't come back, I would have been lying in the hospital." Chapter 203. It's fine, we're all with our own people. Let's go, Director Li. It's too late and we still have exams tomorrow. Yi Qian smiled. At this moment, even though the hospital was filled with the smell of disinfectant, she still felt refreshed. After Father Gao understood the situation from the doctor, he turned his head and saw the teacher and student preparing to leave. He quickly caught up to them. "Director Li, this female student, it's too late. I'll get the driver to take you back." It was almost 1 in the morning. No matter what, he couldn't let the female student who saved his son's life leave by herself. This time, Director Li didn't refuse. Father Gao seemed to be relieved. His cold gaze fell on Yi Qian's face and he revealed a gentle smile. "You're willing to give life to others and leave danger to yourself. I want to ask for money to express my gratitude. To you, it's a form of humiliation. But if I don't express my gratitude properly, I'll feel uneasy. Student Yi Qian, how about this? I'll use your name to provide a scholarship of $1 million to a middle school student in a disadvantaged area. What do you think? A scholarship of $1 million? Director Li faintly sucked in a breath of cold air. A scholarship of $1 million multiplied by 8 times the current exchange rate. Director Li, who had finally calmed down, felt like she had to take another heart-strengthening pill. The exchange rate in July 1995 was 1 million. It was a lot of money. After calculating in her heart, Yi Qian, whose eyes were already curved into crescents, said generously, "Actually, I also need money. After all, the amount you're offering is quite tempting. However, it's pretty good as a scholarship. I'm very grateful for your generosity. I think I should also study hard for your scholarship." Her gaze was open and her eyes were clear. Even though she said she needed money, he still felt that she was natural and unrestrained. This made Father Gao's impression of Yi Qian even better. He let out a rare laugh and sighed. People die for money, and birds die for food. This has never changed since ancient times. But a gentleman who loves money has a right way of obtaining it. Not only do you have a good character, but you're even better. Okay, Uncle will set up a scholarship for you. As long as you do well, this scholarship will be yours. You're thinking too highly of me. Yiqian really didn't expect Father Gao to think so highly of her. She smiled politely and replied, "There are many outstanding students in our country who can't go to school because of tuition fees and family burdens. I think they need the scholarship you set up." After a brief moment of shock, Father Gao said, "How about this? I'll set up a charity organization that provides scholarships for outstanding and impoverished students in the country. We'll mobilize the overseas Chinese to contribute to the future of our country. What do you think?" This was indeed for the best. Our country does need such a charity organization. We also need the help of overseas Chinese from all over the world. Yi Jian reached out her hand like an adult and said with a sincere expression, "Thank you very much for your help. With your help, more students will be able to enter the school." An important matter was settled just like that. Director Li, who had not interjected at all, was dumbfounded. Gao Yang was still under the effects of the tranquilizer. Gao Yang's father promised to send him to the hotel at 7:30 a.m. sharp the next morning. After that, Director Li left with Yi Jian in the car. Chapter 204. Don't think about anything when you get back. I asked Teacher Yu to warm some calming tea for you. Drink it when you get back. Mr. Gao had been present just now, so Mr. Li had restrained himself a little. But now he began to nag. He was still worried that something would happen to his student, so he kept comforting him. "Everything's over now. We came back safe and sound. You just treat it like a dream. When you wake up tomorrow, nothing happened." Yi Qian didn't interrupt, but listened with a smile. Occasionally, she would obediently say, "Okay." She didn't have the coldness of a gun-wielding girl anymore. She was completely an obedient girl. When they returned to the hotel, they didn't disturb the other students. Whether it was the Chinese students or the students from other countries, they didn't know that Yi Qian and Gao Yang had gone through a disaster. What happened in the middle of the night didn't affect the contestants who went to bed early. The next morning, Yi Qian appeared in front of her classmates as usual. No one knew that she had returned to the hotel at 1 in the morning. When Yang Yi saw her, she immediately came over. "Dear, can I sleep with you tonight? I found out that I'm sleeping in the same room as Teacher Yu. Why do I have insomnia?" "You don't have freedom in romance anymore, do you?" Yi Qian smiled and saw through her thoughts. "The first night I slept with you, I helped you pick up your books twice in the middle of the night. You're quite relaxed. Tell me, where did you hide them?" Before coming to Australia, the 4 teachers had specially checked the students' luggage, afraid that the students would bring books that had nothing to do with them. In the end, there were still some that slipped through the net. Yang Yi, who was startled, looked around guiltily and pulled Yi Qian to a corner. "Oh my, you even found out. Good sister, I'll definitely thank you when I get back to the capital." The students hadn't all arrived yet, so the 2 of them huddled in the corner and whispered. Hurried footsteps sounded, and they heard Gao Yang ask the other students, "Did Yi Qian come down? Did you see her?" "Yi Qian? No, I didn't see her after I came back from looking for you last night. Wouldn't he be suspicious if he looked for her in such a big way?" Yi Qian leaned over to take a look. Seeing that he was about to ask the other students, she quickly raised her voice. "I'm here? What's the matter?" "This Gao Yang, looking for you early in the morning is like looking for his mother. I'm afraid there's something urgent. I'll go eat breakfast first." As Yi Qian snickered, Yang Yi waved at Gao Yang, who was striding over. Come. Over here, over here. I'll abdicate my position, and you can talk." On the other hand, Gao Yang, who was supposed to arrive at 7:30, was only staring at Yi Qian. He didn't even spare Yang Yi another glance. After he hurried over, he lowered his voice and said, "You came to the hospital last night, but I didn't know anything. I'm sorry, Yi Qian." His eyes were still red, as if he had just cried. His expression was also somewhat haggard, as if he had not slept well the entire night. "I'm fine. It doesn't matter if you know or not." Yi Qian saw that more and more students were coming and going. He pointed downstairs and said, "Let's talk outside. We can't let anyone know about this." It could be considered a secret between her and Gao Yang. They didn't leave the hotel. They were right in front of the fountain. With the sound of the fountain as a cover, and with the volume lowered, it was a very good place to talk. I'm fine here. You don't have to worry. But you, why do you look like you didn't sleep well last night? Perhaps it was because of last night's experience, but when Yi Qian looked at him again, he wasn't as cold as before. He could even stand and talk to him calmly. It's not a big deal. Yesterday's matter should be fixed on yesterday. Take me for example. If I don't think about it, it won't affect me. Chapter 205. Under the sunlight, her eyebrows and eyes shone brightly. Her skin was so fair that it seemed to glow like a pearl. What made him unable to look away were her bright eyes. Just like last night, they carried a coldness that he had never seen before. Her gaze was like an arrow that pierced straight into his heart. He couldn't help but listen, he couldn't resist. Yi Qian was so unfamiliar that it was as if they were meeting for the first time. Also, the way she held the gun made it seem like she was used to holding a gun, no different from a police officer or a soldier. Skilled marksmanship, shooting without hesitation. Calm response, nimble handling. She was not the Yi Qian that occasionally bickered with Yi Ying in school. After the sedative wore off, he woke up and didn't sleep again. He thought a lot and recalled a lot. In the end, he came to the conclusion that she had been hiding her true self in school. There were so many things he wanted to ask, but every time, he couldn't get them out. After pursing his lips for a while, Gao Yang said in a slightly hoarse voice, "I don't have anything to do. I just came over to thank you. Last night, if it wasn't for you, I don't even know if I would have made it out alive." After a slight pause, she looked at her distant face and sped up her speech. "Thank you, Yi Jian. I was too reckless in the past and liked to take things out of context. I misunderstood you again and again. Fortunately, you're a great person who doesn't mind my mistakes and didn't hold it against me." He laughed self-deprecatingly, revealing the innocence that a boy should have. "Now I know how ridiculous I was in school. I jumped around in front of you like a clown and didn't even realize it. If he wanted to talk about this, then there was no need." Yi Qian smiled faintly and interrupted. "It's not a big deal. I'm not that magnanimous, but I won't fight over the usual disputes and misunderstandings to the point where it's a matter of life and death. As for Yi Ying, I'll say the same thing again. Don't mention her in front of me in the future. I really can't like her." When she mentioned Yi Ying, her tone was cold. It was obvious that their relationship was quite bad. The only difference was that she never gossiped about Yi Ying. Just as her father had said, sometimes it wasn't just about looking at a person, but also about thinking with one's heart. As for Yi Qian, if she didn't like someone, she would say that she didn't like them. She had never heard her talk about others behind their backs. She finally understood that such a person was rare and valuable. Smiling, his inexperienced handsome face had a trace of soaring spirit. His unperturbed eyes lost a trace of coldness and gained a bit of color. "Okay, I won't mention it again. You haven't had breakfast yet, right? Let's go." Putting aside her previous prejudice, Gao Yang was indeed a friend worth befriending. This would explain why Gao Yang did not get together with Yi Ying. She probably left without hesitation after seeing Yi Ying's true face. When they reached the cafeteria, they bumped into another Vietnamese student, as well as the only son of the high official who was kidnapped by Red Scorpion last night. When he saw Yi Qian, his eyes clearly shrank. He pursed his lips and silently took a step back. This step back made the other two Vietnamese students who had appeared in the Red Scorpion room together involuntarily take a step back, allowing Yi Qian and Gao Yang to pass. When they passed by, Yi Qian suddenly stopped. Her gaze fell on the boy who was hiding at the back, trying to minimize his presence. He was the boy who caused her and Gao Yang to be kidnapped. Chapter 206. Her pause immediately made the three boys nervous. They didn't even dare to raise their heads, much less pass Yi Qian and leave. In reality, Yi Qian had only stopped for a moment and left without even saying a word. However, it was precisely because of this that the three of them didn't even dare to breathe loudly. She seemed to be looking at the boy at the back, but in reality, she was sizing up the only son of a high official from the corner of her eye. The only son of a high official. He kept appearing in Red Scorpion's room. In her previous life, She had also seen on the news that high officials were involved in these drug-producing countries. That pair of hands that seemed to be protecting one side was actually dirtier and darker. Xia Jinyuan and the others should know a little about it. However, this was a matter of the Vietnamese and had nothing to do with outsiders. There were 3 days of exams in a row, and the competition in the final exam today was even more intense. Everyone competed to answer the questions, and the entire process was broadcasted live by Australian television. This allowed the Australians who were paying attention to the mathematical Olympiad to see the elegance of the students from each country. The Vietnamese students were not doing well today. Sometimes, even if they managed to grab the questions, they would lose due to a small mistake and end up at the bottom. The competition was the fiercest in China, America, England, and Korea. The students from these 4 countries were all fighting as if they were wearing armor. They were all calm and collected. If there was even the slightest mistake in the middle, the other students would immediately snatch the points back. When it came to mental arithmetic, the gap between them was immediately widened. The first to lose was England, then Korea. In the end, only the Chinese and American students were competing on the stage. The situation suddenly reached an unprecedented level of tension. The atmosphere in the audience was like the air had frozen. Even the announcer who was reporting the live broadcast had a serious expression on her face. Unfortunately, although the Australian contestants tried their best, they were eliminated in the end. However, we are all proud of them because, to be honest, I believe that at least 90% of the people in the country can't do those questions. Up until now, our broadcast room has only received 4 correct answers, and they were all answers provided by adults. The announcer's expression was serious, but her hosting style was humorous. Even if it was her own country's students being eliminated, she still felt that it was a great thing. Below the stage, the teacher's expressions were solemn. Watching the final confrontation between the Chinese and American students, they all held their breaths, waiting to see what the final outcome would be. Theory and mental calculation were carried out simultaneously. Even if the adults watching the live broadcast were confused, they could still feel how fierce the competition in the examination room was. The Chinese and American students did not give in at all. The students' mental calculations and answers were like calculators. Their verbal and logical abilities were extraordinary. The calmness and confidence they displayed when they defeated their opponents pushed the entire competition to the climax. Director Li sat on the stage with his arms crossed. His expression looked very calm, but in fact his hands were clenched tightly under his armpits. His palms were already sweaty. Our country's Olympiad started relatively late. We only joined this competition in 1985. Team competition has always been our country's strength. This time, we came with the determination to win the team gold medal. Therefore, when the rest of the opponents were defeated and only one opponent was left, Director Li did not even dare to blink. He stared at the stage, afraid that he would miss the slightest bit. 5 hours later, when the time was up, the Americans shrugged their shoulders regretfully. The Chinese team had won 3 gold medals, while the Americans only had 2. Chapter 207. In this mathematical Olympiad, the Chinese team once again stood out. The individual gold medal and team total score were among the best. When the results were announced, Director Li stood up with a whoosh and strode to the examination room to give all the contestants who had persisted for 5 hours a warm hug. The audience also applauded continuously. This was for all the students. Regardless of success or failure, the spirit of the students' hard work was worthy of praise. Father Gao, who had never attended his son's parent-teacher conference and had never even been to his son's school, had tears in his eyes. As a middle-aged man, there was a trace of gentleness in his love for family compared to when he was young. He really didn't know that his son was so outstanding that he was so proud of him. A fierce competition ended with the contestants shaking hands with each other and a gentle smile on their faces. The mathematical Olympiad ended. Yi Qian received the gold medal that she had obtained in 2 lifetimes. She, who had always been calm and composed, was also slightly red-eyed. In her previous life, she had gone through hardships but still could not escape from Yi Ying's persecution. In this life, she finally did not need to look at Sun Dongqing and Yi Ying's faces and live carefully. She could stand upright and no longer suffer from that cowardice. The continuous applause was like flowers that appeared on the roadside when you walked through a thorny road. You could stop to feel the joy, but never forget that a wonderful life could not be stopped because of this. Yiqi and Yangyi, the two girls, stand in front. The boys stand on the left and right. Take a group photo together. Below the stage, Director Li, who had a face full of pride, and the staff sent by the embassy took the first group photo of all the students in Australia. When the 12 contestants began to visit the scenery of the University of Sydney, this photo had already been sent back to China by the embassy staff. Yi Qian and the others had not yet returned from Australia. In China, the news that the Chinese team won the most gold medals in the mathematical Olympiad team and the individual gold medals swept across the country like a spring breeze. Even the People's Daily, which had the largest circulation, reported it and accompanied the contestants' performance on the stage. Yi Zhifan was the deputy mayor, and the People's Daily was the paper he had to read every time. When he saw the photo that occupied the most important section of the People's Daily, his gaze suddenly froze. Then he looked at the name attached. His originally relaxed brows suddenly furrowed, and his expression had changed greatly. He had just arrived at work. He picked up his briefcase from his desk, clenched the newspaper in his hand, and strode out of the office. A government worker saw that he seemed to have left in a hurry and asked kindly, "Deputy Mayor Yi, there are still 10 minutes before the meeting. What are you, postpone the meeting for an hour? I have something urgent to attend to." How could he be in the mood for a meeting? Yi Zhifan didn't even look back. He left the office building with a gloomy face and sped home on his motorcycle. After breakfast, Sun Dongqing took Yi Ying to the streets to buy groceries. When they came back, they happened to meet the villagers of Shuka village. At this time, they were already proudly talking about Yi Ying's results in the midterm exam. It's not that I want to praise my Ying, but this child is very sensible. Old Yi and I have never had to worry about her studies. As a matter of fact, he was one of the top few students in the entire cohort during the final exam. Everyone says that all things are inferior, and only education is good. My Ying is not a boy, but in what way is she inferior to a boy? During this period of time, Sun Dongqing was a little arrogant again. It was said that Yi Zhifan was very likely to become the mayor, and her daughter was very capable. Wherever she went, she held her chin high. Yi Zhifan, who was riding his motorcycle all the way, happened to see his wife chatting with the villagers. His gloomy face was almost squeezed out of water. Chapter 208. The women from the same village would more or less interact with Sun Dongqing. After all, she was the wife of an official. Sometimes, if they wanted to do something, it was difficult to find Yi Zhifan, but it was definitely not a problem to find Sun Dongqing. Sun Dongqing was greedy and liked to listen to flattery. Sun Dongqing was both. My old Yi always says that even though my Ying is not a man, she will definitely not be bad in the future. Next year, she will definitely be able to get into the provincial experimental high school in the middle school exams. She will definitely be able to get into Hua University and Shi University. She became more and more enthusiastic as she spoke, her saliva flying everywhere. Even though she was very plump, she really did not match Yi Zhifan in terms of temperament. When the women from the same village heard this, they clicked their tongues and exclaimed, "Isn't that so? Who doesn't know that your Yi family is full of talents? And this talent is from your family. Ying is born with good looks and good grades. When she becomes a university student, she will be a golden phoenix flying out of our poor village." Ying liked to hear these words. When she heard this, she pursed her lips and smiled sweetly. "Auntie Tao, I know that little brother Little Dong also got into town high school. In the future, little brother Little Dong can look for me in class if he needs anything. If he doesn't know where my classroom is, just ask around and a classmate will bring him here." When Auntie Tao met her, she first mentioned that little brother Dong got into town high school and that he would have to worry about something in the future. Yi Ying immediately knew why she was here. Since Yi Qian, that damned girl, made her life in school even more difficult. Then she had to think of a way to make everyone in the same village stand by her side. Let's see if she has the face to return to the village in the future. Rumors and slanders killed people. Since she had failed to seduce teacher, she would have to take her time. Yi Ying's smile became even sweeter as a gloomy look flashed across her eyes. She didn't believe that she couldn't win against an orphan. If 1 year wasn't enough, then 2 years. If 2 years wasn't enough, then 3 years. As long as that damned girl returned to the village, she would have a chance. When Auntie Tao heard this, she immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Of course not. I say, Dongqing, your Yingying is really sensible. No wonder everyone in the village said that the one who had become a demon in the Yi family was actually Yi Ying. Looking at it now, wasn't it true? Yi Zhifan had been listening for a while. If it weren't for his status, he would have walked over and taught the mother and daughter who didn't know anything a lesson. His hands tightened on the handle of the motorcycle. Just as he was about to leave, he heard the sound of a car horn behind him. A black Santana stopped next to him. Someone greeted him with a smile, Deputy Mayor Yi, Deputy Mayor Yi. A Santana stopped, and the person sitting in the back seat came over with a smile. Long time no see, Deputy Mayor Yi. Isn't this Secretary Wu? Are you going to school? When Yi Zhifan saw who it was, the gloominess on his face disappeared. He walked over with a smile and held Secretary Wu's hand. He said politely, "It's so hot today. Do you have something urgent?" Secretary Wu was the leader of the city's education bureau. Auntie Tao heard it too. When she looked over, she clicked her tongue and said, "Old Yi is really a busy man. That person looks like an official. Dongqing, you're really lucky. Wasn't he a blessed person?" Sun Dongqing smiled arrogantly. "I have to go take a look. You're busy. If you don't return to the village at noon, come to my house for lunch." After that, she pulled Ying over. Chapter 209. Aunt Tao, who had wanted to get closer to her, did not dare to make her stay. Seeing the mother and daughter walk over, she stopped for a while and left. "I just found out that you're Yi Qian's uncle. This is really..." When Sun Dongqing heard Yi Qian's name, she was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She immediately exploded. "Yi Qian? Old Yi, what trouble did that wretched girl get into again? Let me tell you, whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with my family. Wretched girl, ungrateful wretch. If it weren't for my family raising her, she would have been a beggar begging for rice." He spoke quickly and hurriedly, without any pause or buffer. He finished speaking with a crackling sound like firecrackers, but he didn't notice that Yi Ying was already sweating from anxiety. "Mom, what are you saying?" Yi Ying was afraid that she would say something unpleasant, so she quickly pulled her back and whispered, "Mom, Dad's expression has changed, and you're still talking. Why don't you see who the important guest is? You can't say anything nice the moment you open your mouth." Ying was also an expert at reading people's expressions, even though she also liked to let others know more about Yi Qian's scandals. But now, who was the guest? What was he doing here? Why was he looking for Yi Qian? She had no idea. Sun Dongqing was still a little unhappy. What? How long has it been since that wretched girl showed up? When I asked you, you said you didn't know. When I asked your dad, he wouldn't tell me. Who knows if she got into trouble outside? This wretched girl, she just doesn't. Mom, can you stop talking?" Yi Ying's little face was now pale because Yi Zhifan's gaze just now was so sharp that it made her shiver involuntarily. Secretary Wu was talking happily. With Sun Dongqing's reprimand, he could tell that something was wrong. He did not show it on his face, but he smiled and asked, "This is... Sai, I've embarrassed myself in front of you. This is my wife. She doesn't know anything. All she knows is to take care of her 3 meals a day." The children like to spread rumors about the slightest mistake. It was impossible for him to teach Sun Dongqing a lesson in front of outsiders. People who worked in the officialdom were good at smoothing things over. They didn't need to explain anything, but they could explain everything clearly. Secretary Wu's expressions softened a little. He had wanted to say a few more words, but now he was not in the mood. It seemed that he should wait for Yi Qian to come back. He smiled and said, "So it's Madame Yi. That little classmate must be Deputy Mayor Ye's daughter." "That's right. Come, Ying, say hello to Secretary Wu." How could Yi Zhifan not see the change in the situation? The other party was clearly here for Yi Qian, but he could not bring himself to mention it. He had to smooth things over first. In terms of social interaction, Ying had always been polite and appropriate. With Sun Dongqing's previous offense, Yi Ying's actions and words were very dignified. "Hello, Uncle Wu. If my mother offended you just now, please don't take it to heart. She was just worried about my sister, so she spoke without thinking. Please don't take it to heart." Yi Zhifan, who was suppressing the anger in his heart, saw this and calmed down quite a bit. His daughter was still sensible, but she was still a little narrow-minded. He would teach her slowly in the future. It's normal for a family to be worried. Then I won't disturb you. Deputy Mayor Yi, let's chat again next time. Secretary Wu saw some clues, but for Yi Zhifan's sake, he naturally wouldn't embarrass his wife. He said a few words of courtesy, which was considered as giving face to her. Chapter 210. Yi Zhifan knew that he couldn't persuade him to stay, so he smiled and said, "That's good. You came to the village on such a hot day. You must have something urgent to attend to. I'll have a drink with you when I'm free." After watching Secretary Wu get into the car, Yi Zhifan's smile immediately disappeared. He glared at his wife and said to Ying, "Look after your mother. I'll deal with you when I get back." It was time for the meeting, so he had to rush back. Ying was always afraid of him. Hearing this, her back broke out in a cold sweat and she nodded timidly. Suppressing his anger, Yi Zhifan didn't even have the mood to attend the meeting. Whenever he thought of his wife's complacent look outside, he felt his heart burn fiercely. He had a belly full of anger that he couldn't vent. Yi Qian, the wretched girl she kept calling, had already gone abroad and won an award. People's Daily even published a photo and highlighted the students who won the gold medal in bold. Yi Qian was one of them. They even used the phrase, "turning the tide," to describe Yi Qian's performance in the exam. Let's see if he still has the face to talk about Ying's exam results. Let's see if he still has the face to talk about how amazing his daughter is. Let's see if he still has the face to step on Yi Qian's face and make himself look good. Originally, he wanted to come back after work to scold his wife, who knew that after the meeting he would call Yi Zhifan to go to the city. The matter that had been hanging in the air for half a year finally had an answer. He was promoted from deputy to official. On the same day, he had to report to the city and study for half a month. He could only come back when school started. The success of his official career made Yi Zhifan temporarily put this matter aside. He packed his luggage and rushed to the city. In Shuku village, Uncle Zhen and Principal Chen came back from fishing early in the morning. Both of them were full of smiles. They knew about Yi Qian's results before Yi Zhifan did. At the same time, they also knew about the dangerous incident that happened that night. Although it was dangerous, when they thought about how the military knew about it and recorded Yi Qian's achievements in the file, the two elders were pleasantly surprised. Little Yi is brave and careful. Once she sets her mind on something, there's nothing she can't do. Old man Zhen dealt with the big grass carp that he had caught early in the morning and laughed out loud. Even the deep wrinkles on his face looked like blooming flowers. "I feel at ease now." Ever since Principal Chen returned from the province, he and Uncle Zhen, to live in Shuka village and go to the military once a week or so. Hearing that, a smile appeared on his wrinkled face. He sighed and said, "A 4-year plan is a long time, but half a year will pass in the blink of an eye. Little Yi will only be with us for a year. The rest will have to wait until the winter and summer holidays." There was no high school in town. If there was a high school with little Ye's talent, she would not be held back if she went to high school in town. She was smart and eager to learn. No matter where she went, she wouldn't be bad. Uncle Zhen was already laughing. Children grow up. Sooner or later, she'll fly high. She can see further. She just has to come back to visit us occasionally. Don't restrict her. Although the time is short, we'll teach her strictly. If she studies seriously, she'll be admitted to school sooner or later. They removed the scales, dug out the innards, and washed the fish clean. Their lunch of braised fish was inevitable. Chapter 211. The two elders usually talked about Yi Qian. Other than that, they also talked about the training of some soldiers in the army. For the two elders, this kind of topic was their hope and spiritual sustenance. In the hotel, Yi Qian had already packed her luggage. She sat on the bed and looked at the letter that the front desk had just handed her. After a while, she finally tore up the envelope and the letter inside, and flushed them down the toilet. It was from Xia Jinyuan. It wasn't a letter, just a few words. He said that he wanted her to rest in Jing City for 2 days and that he could only go back to China after 2 days. So what if he went back to China? Dangerous men were like poison. She couldn't touch them, especially when this dangerous and poisonous man liked to show signs of ambiguity from time to time. This made her even more unwilling to have too much contact with him in her life. Without any hesitation or consideration, Yi Qian maintained her original attitude and insisted on staying away from Xia Jinyuan in her life. After shaking hands with the local Australian students one by one, the Chinese students finally embarked on their journey back to China under the guidance of Director Li and the other 3 teachers. It was 11 a.m. when they arrived in Jing City. Yi Qian didn't plan to stay in Jing City for too long. Her plan was to fly back to the province at 2 p.m. If time didn't allow for it, she would rest in the province for one night and take the train back to the city early the next morning. Not only did she have to travel back to town from the city, but she also had to take a bus back to town. Don't think it's over. From town to the village, she still had to take a bus. Old people would probably feel their scalps tingle when they heard this, but for Yi Qian, she couldn't wait to take the train back to the city as soon as she arrived in the province. She was anxious to return home. Director Li tried her best to persuade her to stay in Jing City for a few more days and visit their school, but was rejected by Yi Qian. This made the eloquent Director Li so worried that her hair turned white. "You little girl, why don't you understand?" Teacher Li took a big gulp of water. He wanted to persuade Yi Qian to come down, but when he saw the sly smile in her eyes, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Good girl. Are you pretending to be confused in front of your teacher?" He was smart and well-mannered, and he handled the relationship between students quite well. He was not arrogant, and he was not arrogant because of his strengths. He really did not want to give up on such a good seedling so easily. When Yi Qian heard that he wanted to continue, he stopped feigning ignorance. He smiled and said, "Director Li, to tell you the truth, if there was a high school in our town, I would have studied there as well." Why was that? Everyone is racking their brains to get into a top school. Why is it so weird when it's your turn? I can tell you that in the whole of Beijing, our school has the strongest teaching staff. Not to mention Hua University and Shi University, most of the students who study abroad have a bonus. In response to Director Li's well-meaning advice, Yi Qian smiled faintly and replied, "You're honey, you're arsenic." He didn't say anything else. This was something that was completely impossible. He could only thank Director Li for his kindness. "You little girl, you really do have a lot of ideas." Director Li didn't try to persuade her anymore. He sighed heavily and said to the 2 boys, Gao Yang and Wang Imo, "Take care of the girls on the road. When you arrive in the province, remember to call me to let me know you're safe." Chapter 212. Wang Imo chuckled. "Don't worry, I'll definitely call you." Since the 3 of them were traveling together, Director Li wasn't too worried. However, he still called Teacher Zhu from the provincial high school, who was responsible for bringing the 3 of them to school. He told him what time the students would be arriving at the provincial high school and personally escorted them to the departure lounge before leaving. "After I get off the plane, I'll go directly to the train station to see if there are any train tickets back to the city tonight." As soon as they boarded the plane, Yi Qian told Gao Yang her plan. "I can go back alone, and I want to go back earlier." She hadn't trained in a long time, so she was very anxious to go back. Gao Yang glanced at her and frowned slightly. He pursed his lips and said, "There are tickets. Let's go back together." He didn't hear her mention that if she hadn't been able to get the tickets, she would have gone back alone. "That's fine too." Yi Qian nodded slightly. Although there was no misunderstanding like before, she wasn't very interested in closing the distance between them. It was enough to maintain a casual friendship. Although she wasn't as cold to him as before, she didn't want to be friends either. Gao Yiyang, who realized this, felt a little bitter. He didn't say anything more and closed his eyes to pretend to rest. After Wang Yimou and Yi Qian chatted for a while, Wang Yimou also yawned and closed his eyes to sleep. Only Yi Qian, although she also closed her eyes, her mind was clear. She didn't feel sleepy at all when she thought about how she would soon be able to immerse herself in the intense training. As she wished, when they arrived at the provincial capital at 5:30 p.m., Gao Yiyang immediately called to book the train tickets for 7:45 p.m. The two of them didn't even meet Mr. Zhu and rushed to the train station without stopping. From Australia to Beijing, then to the province, the city, the town, and the village. Yi Qian spent a total of 2.5 days on the road. At noon, the sun was so hot that even the cicadas were resting. The entire village was extremely quiet. Even the dogs were lying under the shade of the trees, panting heavily. When Yi Qian walked into the peach forest with her luggage, Xia Jinyuan stood at the hotel where he and Yi Qian had agreed to meet. "No one contacted you? Are you sure?" Xia Jinyuan frowned and looked at Han Zheng in disbelief. He pressed his lips together and asked, "Are you sure no one called you when you were at the nightclub?" Han Zheng was on the verge of tears. He patted his chest and swore, "Absolutely not. They were watching him 24 hours a day. That little girl of yours definitely didn't contact me, I guarantee it." What was this? Could it be that his brother's words were false? The aggrieved Han Zheng pretended to cry and said sadly, "Why would I lie to you? Let me tell you, that little girl is not interested in you at all. The great young master Xia also has a time when he is despised by others. My heart is really King happy." Amidst his childhood friend's gloating laughter, Xia Jinyuan's face gradually tensed up. The little girl didn't come, so the next time they met would be difficult. It might be a few months, or a few years. Xia Jinyuan was originally supposed to join the team at the end of the year. Now, because of Operation Pebble, the transfer order was sent to his original unit the day before yesterday and he would be transferred to the new unit the next day. Each unit was responsible for special missions, such as war zone operations, overseas pursuits, foreign assassinations, intelligence spying, and so on, which were classified as Red Level 1, Snowfield Brigade. Since she didn't come, Xia Jinyuan could only leave Beijing with regret and go to the Snowfield Brigade. Chapter 213. Before leaving, Xia Jinyuan wrote a letter to Yi Tong's school, hoping that she would receive his letter when school started. He left without saying goodbye. Only the little girl was familiar with this kind of thing. He didn't want to learn from her. The letter arrived at school 2 days before school started. After returning to the mountains and arriving at the army, Yi Qian fought with the soldiers all day long. She didn't even miss her daily exercises and training. When she looked up from the target, the days passed by like flipping through a book. In the blink of an eye, it was time to report back to school and usher in the 3rd year of middle school. She still couldn't bear to leave the army, causing the soldiers in the army to laugh and tease Yi Qian, who was like a little sister to them. It was noon when she left. Dozens of people sent her off at the same time. The scene was so spectacular that the regiment commander laughed out loud. He said to the political commissar, "This little girl was born to be a soldier. How can you tell that she's a little girl? For the sake of training, she cut her silky long hair just like that. Now, she looks just like a boy." He paused and added, "It's just that her skin is a little too pale. She's been under the sun for more than 20 days, but I don't see her tan. If the little girl really turns into a coal under the sun, she'll cry." The political commissar laughed. There wasn't a single female soldier in the army. Even the military doctor was a man. With Yi Qian, the little girl's arrival had the effect of balancing yin and yang. Although ordinary people weren't allowed to enter the military grounds, Yi Qian was different. Even the military took note of her. When they found out that she was here, they even called and told her to teach her well. The little girl had a good temper and was hardworking. She was like a piece of gold in the army, shining wherever she went. Any army would be willing to open their doors and welcome such a talent. More than 10 days passed by quickly. Looking at this group of soldiers, he knew how much they couldn't bear to see her leave. Not only the soldiers, but even he, the political commissar, couldn't bear to see her leave. They walked all the way to the entrance of the barracks. Only then did the soldier, who couldn't go out, pass Yi Qian's luggage to her. He patted her shoulder as if she was a comrade and said with a smile, "Come back on Saturday and Sunday. There are a lot of pheasants in the mountains in autumn. When the time comes, we'll carry the company commander and roast some pheasants." "Okay, then I'll have to bring a few more bags of cumin powder. Sprinkle a handful of cumin powder on it when it's cooked. That's called fragrant." Yi Qian had cut his hair as soon as he entered the army, revealing his exquisite and flawless facial features. His eyes were as dazzling as the stars in the sky, and his smile was as bright as the morning sun. "Wait for me. See you on Saturday morning." Compared to the colorful life outside, Yi Qian loved this blood-boiling land more. When she walked out of the barracks, she turned back to look at the tall figures dressed in army green who seemed to blend into the mountains. Even the corners of her eyes were smiling. One by one, they stood ramrods straight like rows of spears at the entrance of the barracks. Even if it was resting time, they were always ready. In the army, the most common saying was, "Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used in an hour." The most discussed topic was, protect the country. No matter what era it was, those rows of army green figures would always be the most adorable people of that era. After leaving the army at noon, they took a village car to town in the afternoon. The people in the car were either from the same village or from the neighboring villages. They talked about their hometown all the way to town. Chapter 214. My chickens are hanging outside. They can't run away. I have to give them away. When the bus stopped midway, some villagers, under the urging of the conductor, didn't forget to remind them that they couldn't let anything happen to the chickens they brought into the town. The ticket seller was actually the driver's wife. She took the money and said, "Who wants your chickens? They're hanging in the back. It smells like chicken poop. Who can smell it in the summer? Get on, get on. Don't dawdle." It was common to see chickens and ducks when visiting relatives in town. There were many students on the bus. They chatted and chatted all the way to town. The buses driving in the town were not good cars. They were all old minibuses that had been eliminated by the city. There was no air conditioning in summer and no heating in winter. Everyone sitting in the bus hated that they could not tear down the windows. Gao Yang had been waiting for a long time. There were only 3 buses from Shuku village to town. One in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one in the afternoon. The first 2 buses did not see Yi Qian, so it had to be this bus. Soon, a shabby minibus came from afar. Gao Yang put some money on the counter of the canteen and bought 2 mung bean popsicles. He pushed the bicycle with one hand and walked over, but after a few steps, he stopped. He saw Yi Ying and the mayor's wife, who had been in the limelight for the past 10 days. Yi Qian, who was sitting by the window, got off the bus. He felt that today was not a good day to go out. He saw the fashionably dressed mother and daughter, Sun Dongqing and Ying, getting on the bus. They were talking to a woman who said that she wanted to take care of her chickens. It turned out that the woman's sister was giving birth at the town hospital. The mayor's wife, Sun Dongqing, had helped a little. She was here to thank them personally. Yi Qian did not plan to avoid them. So what if he bumped into them? When they got to school, she and Ying would be in the same classroom. They would not see each other all day. How could she avoid them? Although the sun was setting in the west in the afternoon, it was still hot. Yi Jian glanced at Yi Ying, who was obviously impatient but still had a fake smile on her face. She took her luggage and left the car. Ying had lost her patience. Her father had just taken office and needed the support of the villagers. Would she come out for a few chickens and ducks? Being close to the people? She had no choice. Over the phone, her father had specifically said that she had to make the mother and daughter appear close to the people. Yi Ying, who was waving a paper fan in her hand, said a few words with a fake smile. She looked up slightly and saw a face that she hated for a long time. His gaze suddenly became exceptionally sharp and fiercely swept over as if he were looking at an enemy. Every time she thought about the humiliation at the farm in the suburbs of the capital, she hated that she couldn't tear this face apart in her dreams. Yi Qian. She gritted her teeth and shouted in a low voice. Her cold voice was filled with coldness, but she didn't walk over. She just stared fiercely at him. Even on a hot day, the coldness in her eyes would cause goosebumps. She was still the same. A leopard could not change its spots. Yi Qian curled his lips. Facing Yi Ying's coldness, he returned a cold smile. His smile was as clear as water, filled with indifference and disdain. Sun Dongqing already had a conditioned reflex when she heard the name Yi Qian. She immediately shouted, "Where are you? Where is the wretched girl?" She looked up and saw Yi Qian grabbing his luggage and leaving the bus. She was furious. Like a weed on fire, it instantly started a prairie fire. "Wretched girl, stop right there. Do you still have any respect for your elders? Hey, where did all the reading go? You don't even have any respect for your elders." Chapter 215. After not seeing Yi Qian for a few months, and hearing her daughter say that she was bullied by Yi Qian at school today, Sun Dongqing was so pleased with herself that she wanted to teach Yi Qian a lesson. Yi Qian turned a deaf ear. She wanted to make a fool of herself in front of everyone, but she didn't want to. Of course, if she really wanted to make a fool of herself, she wasn't afraid to play along. He ignored her and didn't even look back. He was clearly ignoring her. Sun Dongqing thought about it. Which one of them didn't greet her with a smile in the past 10 days? Only this wretched girl dared to disobey her. She was so angry that she swung her arms and chased after him. Her reaction was so big that it made Yi Ying's heart sink. She thought to herself, "This is bad." She hurriedly chased after her and stopped her. She whispered, "Mom, we're on the streets. There are so many people coming and going. Don't embarrass Dad. Don't forget, Dad specifically told you not to." The mention of her husband made Sun Dongqing slam on the brakes. Her chubby body trembled a few times under her skirt before she managed to calm down. She glared at Yi Qian's back, her chest still heaving up and down violently. "Wretched girl, she's lucky." She cursed in a low voice before she stopped. Yi Qian, who had walked far away, could still hear her bad-mouthing her to the women in the neighboring village. She said that she didn't come back for the whole summer vacation, that she didn't come back at night, and that she didn't know where she went to fool around. She walked quickly and didn't see Gaoying, who was pushing his bicycle, walk coldly behind Yi Ying. In the past, she only saw one side of it, but now she heard it for real. She saw it with her eyes, heard it with her ears, and felt it with her heart. Only then did she realize that some things were so unbearable. For example, this mayor's wife clearly didn't know anything, but she was still shamelessly talking nonsense and bad-mouthing Yi Qian. No matter how bad Yi Qian's relationship with your family is, at least I've never heard her talk behind your back. He spoke coldly, but his words were like thunder that exploded in Yi Ying's heart. Yi Ying's mind spun rapidly. How much did he hear, and what did he know? No, she had to divert his attention. Last time in the suburbs of the capital, he was especially cold to her. This time, she had to salvage her image no matter what. She restrained the shock on her face and slowly turned around to let her eyes be filled with surprise. Using a kind of natural joy that was just right, she said with surprise and joy, "When did you come back? Today? Why did you come back so late?" Usually, whenever Gao Yang came back from the holidays, the first thing he would do was look for Yi Ying. In the past, I was indeed stupid. Gao Yang looked coldly at Yi Ying, who had pretended that nothing had happened with just a turn of her body. His eyes were filled with mockery, both toward himself and Yi Ying. Hearsay is false, but seeing is believing. For you, I don't only need to use my ears and eyes to verify, I also need to use my heart to observe you. The girl who had handed him a handkerchief when he was at his most embarrassing. Perhaps she had been kind at that moment, or perhaps she had just happened to pass by. She had handed him the handkerchief in order to improve her reputation in front of her classmates. Truth and falsehood, falsehood and truth. He couldn't see through Ying like this, and he didn't want to see through her. The incident at the farm in the suburbs of the capital had already clearly seen her character. Now that she was saying these things, did she expect him to say something to make her apologize to Yi Qian? Chapter 216. She was afraid that even if she apologized, Yi Qian would not accept it. Sun Dongqing was confused. This boy was tall, good-looking and fair. From the way he dressed, she could tell that he came from a rich family. Why couldn't she understand a single word he said? Gao Yang looked at the mayor's wife, who was looking at him suspiciously. She didn't seem to understand what was going on. He pursed his lips and suppressed the words he wanted to say. He said to Ying coldly, "You're on your own now." Pushing the bicycle, Gao Yang didn't look at Ying, whose eyes had turned red because of what he said. His cold eyes no longer had the faint joy he had when he saw Ying. Because the last trace of love he had for her had been wiped clean by the incident at the farm in the suburbs of the capital. The love between a boy and a girl was always unavoidable. Perhaps, only through such experiences would one gradually grow and mature. Gao Yang, what right do you have to say that to me? You bastard! Ying felt wronged. Seeing that he still didn't say anything to her, she couldn't continue to be dignified. She cried out, "What do you know? You don't know anything. What right do you have to say that to me? What right do you have to say that to me?" Yi Qian was so arrogant in class. He stole everything that belonged to her. Why didn't he stand up for her? Why did he participate in the mathematical Olympiad? He could have helped her deal with Yi Qian, but he didn't. Now, he even helped Yi Qian teach her a lesson. Who did he like? Yi Ying was so angry that she started crying, which made Sun Dongqing panic. Wasn't this the boy that Ying always talked about when she came home? Even old Yi didn't say anything when he found out. It was as if he had silently agreed to the relationship between the two children. It was said that he came from a very, very rich family. Sun Dongqing, who didn't understand what was going on, didn't even know how to comfort her. She wondered if she should bring the boy back. She looked over and saw Gao Yang catch up with Yi Qian and hand him the popsicle. Great. If she still didn't understand what was going on, she would have eaten for decades in vain. Don't cry, Ying. Mom will stand up for you. Damned hoof. His guts were about to reach the heavens. You shameless thing, just wait for your mother to clean you up. She's so young and she already knows how to snatch men. Sun Dongqing, who had misunderstood, cursed in a low voice. For a moment, she forgot about the woman who was still holding the chicken in her hand. At this moment, how could he still remember? If not for Ying crying, she would have chased after Yi Qian and Gao Yang. Ying, who didn't dare to cry out loud on the street, turned around and ran back home. Sun Dongqing wanted to chase after her, but the woman with the chickens in her hands cried out a few times and stood there awkwardly, not knowing whether to leave or not. Just like that, she listened to the whole story. Yo, you haven't left yet. I have to go home. When children quarrel, adults have to worry. Sun Dongqing, whose face had darkened, forced a smile. She said a few words, took the chicken and hurried home. Ying locked herself in her room the moment she got home. She didn't even come out for dinner. The next morning, she didn't even have breakfast. She went to school with a pair of red and swollen eyes. Sun Dongqing, who hadn't slept the whole night, was afraid that Yi Ying would be late. When she heard the noise, she immediately got out of bed. Yi Ying was just about to go to school when she slammed the door. Damned hoof. Ying was so angry that she didn't even eat breakfast. If I don't tidy up, she really thinks she's going to heaven. She muttered as she tidied up her clothes and hurried out. When the phone rang, she had just finished changing because she was in a hurry to go to school. She ignored it and went straight to school. Chapter 217. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Yi Qian was the first to run to the school. However, Principal Chen was even earlier than her. He held a letter in his hand and stood at the school gate, leisurely waiting for Yi Qian to come over. Not long after, he saw a figure in the school's summer uniform running over. Bathed in the morning sun, the figure was like a young eagle fluttering its wings. Although its wings were still tender, It could already fly freely under the blue sky and white clouds. He took out the letter and read it. When she was about to run past, he hid behind his back with his hands behind his back. His gaze was kind and encouraging as he waited for the young eagle to fly over. Yiqian, who was drenched in sweat from running, had already seen the elder standing at the school gate. She ran a little faster. "You're here so early. Are you here to welcome our new students?" The admission of new students has always been handled by Dean Ku. "I've been waiting for you." Principal Chen sized up the little girl whom he hadn't seen for a few days. He smiled and said, "The army is really good at raising people. You've grown up again." As he spoke, he handed the letter over. Sender, Xia Jinyuan. Recipient, Yi Qian. "Little girl, have you become pen pals with Major Xia?" His words were strong and clear, yet he knew how to restrain himself. His words were like his person. This Major Xia seemed to treat little Yi differently. Yi Qian was a little surprised. He wrote to her? She took the letter and read it. It was indeed Xia Jinyuan's handwriting. She couldn't figure out why he would write to her out of the blue. She pretended to tear the letter and read it, but Principal Chen hurriedly stopped her. "Read it later. I have something else to talk to you about first. Come, let's go to my office." At 6 o'clock in the morning, the school was still quiet. Registration was in the morning, the freshman assembly in the afternoon, and classes started the next day. The registration time was very tight, which was in line with Principal Chen's style of doing things. When they reached his office, he smiled and said, "Secretary Wu from the city's education bureau is coming over today. He came over a while ago, but he didn't see you or me. He rushed back to the city for nothing. Make some preparations later and have a good chat with Secretary Wu." This girl had a mature personality and always kept a low profile in everything she did. Even though she had won the grand prize this time, she still acted as if nothing had happened and did what she had to do. Yi Ying, on the other hand, had made it into the top 10 of her grade in the final exam and made it known to the whole town. That child, if she didn't properly educate and nurture him, he might really be ruined by his mother. Yi Qian nodded and said with a smile, "All right, is there anything we need to pay attention to? That way, I can be mentally prepared." She had never experienced these things in her previous life. Even if she had to do it all over again, she had to learn it all over again. Moreover, if there was no need for them to meet, Principal Chen would definitely decline on her behalf. Now that he had personally told her about it, she had to be cautious. No need, it's because of your award and... Principal Chen paused for a second, then the smile in his eyes deepened. "Also, it's about setting up an outstanding student scholarship in our city. The organizer, Mr. Gao, specifically mentioned your name to the mayor, saying that you were the one who suggested it." Speaking of this, Principal Chen felt proud. She was able to think of things that others couldn't. She was broad-minded, had a deep sense of righteousness, knew how to refuse, and was able to act appropriately. How could he and Uncle Jen not be proud of such a girl? However, this girl was able to keep her composure and didn't mention a word about it when she came back. No one knew that she had done something big without saying a word. Chapter 218. Yi Qian did not expect Father Gao to act so quickly. She joked, "Then I have to work harder and aim for the scholarship. Who knows, maybe I won't have to worry about tuition fees when I go to university." "Ha, little girl, that depends on what university you go to. If it's a military school, not only will they not charge you a single cent, they'll even give you an allowance." Principal Chen laughed. The little girl could be quite childish at times, and it was very interesting to watch. "Don't worry. As long as you get into a military school, you'll be waiting for a monthly allowance as your living expenses." After laughing, there was some bitterness. A child without parents even had to worry about tuition fees. Fortunately, the little girl was the orphan of a martyr and had no tuition fees for the 3 years of junior high school. Otherwise, Sun Dongqing, the mayor's wife, would probably have to make the little girl quit school and go out to work. It was already past 7 o'clock in the morning, and there were more and more students in the school. The freshmen who came in for the first year of junior high still looked childish. They laughed and played with each other as they entered the campus. Yi Jian came out of the office and walked around the campus for a while. She didn't go back until the classroom door opened. After not seeing her for a summer break, her classmates seemed to have grown taller. And Jiesin pounced on Yi Qian from behind like a tiger pouncing on its prey. She laughed and said, "What kind of food did you eat? You grew so fast." The little girl was getting further and further away from Yi Qian. Yi Qian, who had grown up a week ago, had also started the normal process of a girl's development. Over the summer break, she had indeed grown quite quickly. "You want to eat? Don't eat it for breakfast tomorrow. I'll send some over tomorrow. I promise you'll grow taller." Yi Qian turned around and looked at her friend with a smile. After a glance, she laughed even louder. "Did you go to work as a child labor? You're so tanned. Your face really makes your teeth look so white." And Jiesin, who had gone out with her father for the whole summer break, waved her hand and said boldly, "My father said that it's better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books. I followed his expedition team for the whole summer break and was exposed to the elements. How can I not be tanned?" And Jiesin's father was a geologist. Not long after, Zhang Na, Zhang Bin, and the other students who had a good relationship with Yi Qian entered the classroom. Zhou Liao, who was a math enthusiast, was also added in. The few of them sat together to discuss Yi Qian's Olympiad questions. Lagrange's mean value theorem and Cauchy's mean value theorem. These are things that can only be learned in advanced mathematics. This written exam also covers them. Not only that, there's also a higher-order derivative formula. Leibniz also has it. It can be said that the mathematical Olympiad is not just a middle school level. The difficulty of the questions is quite wide. Yi Qian's expression was a little serious. She had seen a lot and knew why Director Li said that there was still a big gap between their country's theoretical knowledge and the international knowledge. The foreign students may not know how to do it, but they have all understood it. As for our own students, looking at the shocked faces in front of him, Yi Qian sighed and said, "So, there is still a gap between us and them. Oh my God, this is too difficult. I've never even heard of it." TSK. No wonder he was eliminated in the exam. Luckily, he was eliminated. Otherwise, he would be a disgrace abroad. And Jiesin was very emotional. Although her math results were not bad, it was only middle school math. As for high school advanced, sorry, she did not understand any of it. Zhou Liao pushed up his glasses and sighed heavily. "That's what I thought too. Fortunately, I was selected. It's fine if I lose face in my own school, but if I really lose face abroad, I'll be a sinner." Chapter 219. Go, go, go. You want to be a sinner of the country? You don't have the ability to make the whole country remember your crimes. Zhang Na rolled her eyes and put her chin on the table dejectedly. She said sullenly, "I'm not good at math. What will I do when I get into high school? Yi Qian, you're going to take the provincial high school entrance exam. I'm afraid I can't even afford to take the city's high school entrance exam." There was only 1 year left until the general entrance exam. Although everyone was smiling, the students with good grades were actually feeling a certain amount of pressure. Yi Qian flicked her forehead with his finger and smiled. "You're worrying too much. There's only 1 year left until the general entrance exam. Work hard and get into high school first. Then work hard for the next 3 years and get into university." Easy for you to say. It's easy to get into high school, but getting into university is difficult. While Jiesin was wailing, Ms. Ku and Ying walked into the classroom together. Someone said, "Ms. Ku is here." The noisy classroom quieted down instantly as the students sat at the nearest table. Although Yi Ying's eyes were a little swollen, her complexion was still good. She glanced coldly at Yi Qian's seat and saw a boy in the class. She gritted her teeth and didn't look again. She walked to the seat below the podium and sat down with her back straight. There was no formal class. Ms. Ke started with a bunch of rules and regulations, just like in previous years. When it came to the students who didn't take the exam last semester, she habitually said sternly, "Yi Qian, stand up." Before she could react, she had already called out his name. Yi Qian also stood up quickly. There was a hint of a smile in his eyes. This slip of the tongue, he probably talked about her a lot. You did well this time. Sit down. Ms. Ke didn't expect to be called out like this. Her expression was stiff and she was quite unhappy. However, she had no choice but to praise Yi Qian vaguely. And Jiasun snickered secretly. Being a teacher like Teacher Ku, it was amazing. Teacher Ku, who already knew that Yi Qian had won the grand prize in the mathematical Olympiad, didn't want to mention it at all. It was as if she could cover up the truth by not mentioning it. Fortunately, Yi Qian did not care about these things. He allowed Teacher Ku to loudly praise and commend Yi Ying from the podium. He even called on the entire class to learn from her, to have a proper attitude, and to not cause trouble for the teacher all day long. Sun Dongqing had deliberately chosen to come during school hours. She was about to rush into the classroom when she heard Teacher Ku praising her daughter. She shrank back and waited outside. Principal Chen, who came with Secretary Wu, immediately recognized that the woman standing outside the classroom was the new mayor's wife. His eyes narrowed, and a trace of coldness flashed through his sharp eyes. This is Class 1. In front of us is Class 2. There's no distinction between experimental classes and ordinary classes in the middle school in town. As he spoke, he intentionally guided Secretary Wu into Class 1. Although Fujian Town was only a town middle school and its teachers were slightly weaker than the ones in the city, there was a military unit here. The children of the military's family members were also studying here. Therefore, the teachers here were quite capable. Secretary Wu laughed. You're too humble. Many of the top students in our city graduated from your school. This year, 4 students from number 1 middle school were admitted to Tsinghua University. One of them graduated from Fujian Town Middle School. This time, it seemed that there were 2 more capable students who could get into Tsinghua University and West University. One was Yi Qian, and the other was Gao Yang from Class 3. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.